Welcome everyone. I'm Emma Goldblatt. I'm the program manager at Shamayim Jewish Animal Advocacy. So Shamayim is a nonprofit organization that runs campaigns, programs, and educational opportunities to teach the Jewish community about animal advocacy and veganism. And we're so excited to do this early Passover celebration with you guys. We're going to be doing a vegan matzo ball cooking demo, as well as a little interview Q&A with Chef Adam of the Cinnamon Snail. For those of you who don't know, Adam Sobel is a vegan chef who has cooked at the James Beard House and represented the USA at the World Street Food Congress in the Philippines. He's appeared on the Food Network, Cooking Channel, PBS, and several networks, and is the author of the popular cookbook Street Vegan. His restaurant and food truck, the Cinnamon Snail, was launched in 2010 as the country's first organic vegan food truck and rose to become one of the country's most sought-after food trucks. It was nominated 5 years in a row for the Vendy Award and has won the Vendy Cup, People's Choice Makers Mark Challenge, and Vendy Hero Award. In 2014, the Cinnamon Snail was the #1 highest rated of any kind to eat in New York City and the #4 highest place of any kind to eat in the entire USA on Yelp. So with that, welcome, Chef Adam. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so psyched to be here. I got in cahoots with Shamayim way back in I guess kind of in the beginning of the pandemic. My wife really wanted to introduce some vegan programming at the synagogue that my daughter was going to be bat mitzvahed at. And so we got in cahoots and put together a bunch of different cool stuff over there at Monmouth Reform Temple in Jersey. So awesome to do something here in the cybernetic realm with you all. So, yeah, today we're going to get in on some matzo ball soup making, and my hope is that maybe you'll make this recipe next week. As most of you probably know, this year Pesach falls on like Saturday night, which makes for like a trickier time having time to prep if you observe Shabbat, right? So I'm going to be teaching like a full-length vegan Passover Seder like cooking class on Thursday, including stuff like this, and also, you know, tzimmus and haroset and potato kugel and like a flourless chocolate cake, all vegan. And some of those things you can get away with prepping on that Thursday, and then it'll still be good on Saturday night. But things like potato kugel, I would definitely encourage you to make fresh Saturday night. It's not super labor intensive. You can definitely handle it. And if you have things like your matzo ball soup out of the way, which are a little more time intensive, not super labor intensive, but it does take some time. If that's all out of the way, then it's pretty easy to knock out the couple things that really do need to be made fresh. So let's first, real quick, before we actually make matzo balls, I do want to talk to you about the stock we're going to use itself. So here we go. What I like to do is just boil up kind of a customized stock, like a purpose-built stock, if you will. Oopsie. Here we go. If you follow this recipe right here, it'll give you a nice kind of baseline stock to use. I really like the sweetness of some parsnips in the stock that I use for matzo ball soup. And when I make this stock, this isn't like the whole broth, right? This is just like the liquids. We're going to strain out these veggies, but you know, it's just carrots, onions, celery, some parsnips. You can throw in a couple bay leaves. You know, some people like to make kind of a garbage stock and like throw in things like broccoli stems and stuff like that. I'm not a firm believer in that, partially because I have dogs that are vegan. One of them's like right by my feet as we speak, all curled up. And so things like stems, a lot of times I'll cook into their dog food, so they're not going to waste anyway, but it's not going to like make the stock for matzo balls like super dark looking, which it really shouldn't be like hyper dark looking. You know, like normally matzo ball soup is made with like a chicken stock and not like a beef stock or something that would be really, really dark looking. So you're going to have this here. stock already boiled up. And then this is really like some very helpful stuff to just have on hand. Like, you can make a big batch of this and have quarts of this stock, ready to go whenever the heck you need it. All right, hold on a second here. What's going on? Uh-oh. Hold on a sec. Hold on. Give me just a second here. Has happened. Here, you guys might need to give me a second to restart this because I'm having a little bit of a glitch. Hold on
No
just a second.
worries. I hope everyone's doing well. So yeah, I put in the chat that Chef Adam has a special discount code for Shamayim for his Passover prep along class where he'll be making a whole variety stuff like he mentioned. That's Thursday, April 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So I did put the link for that in the chat so you can check that out.
Thanks, you guys. You can hear me again and everything, right?
Yep, you sound good.
Okay, super duper. All right, so just lower the flame there. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to do to turn that stock into like a proper soup base for this. I like to have that stock, and then I'll kind of saute some onions and carrots and add some herbs and some stuff to create like a little bit of kind of umami and like chicken soupiness. So for that, it's kind of this blend of different seasonings. This lighter colored one is actually some mushroom powder that a student of mine made with some porcini mushrooms he grew. But you could use any kind of store-bought mushroom powder. If you're going to pick one like off of Amazon, go for one that has porcini mushrooms in them rather than just shiitake mushrooms. That it really has a nicer, like kind of more robust umami type of flavor. And then the absolute key is having like oodles and oodles of fresh dill and a little bit of parsley. So let's get our carrots and onions all cut up. All right, so for this, I'm actually using shallots, but you could use regular onions. I just happen to have shallots on hand. And while I get these cut up, what I like to do is actually kind of preheat the pan that I'm going to saute these in. So you'll see I've got this Dutch oven on the stove, and I'm going to start warming it before I even add in any of the olive oil, which is going to just allow like the pores of the metal to kind of expand a little bit so that it heats up real quickly and evenly. And just a little note for you about shallots. They don't make me cry any less than regular onions. I think maybe in the onion kingdom, shallots are like the one that make me cry the most. But I've been doing a lot of like Southeast Asian recipes for my food blog lately. So shallots are like the main onion of like Thai and Indonesian and Vietnamese cuisine. So that's what I've got in my pantry right now. And you're just looking for like a centimeter-ish dice on these. All right, and now our pan itself should be nice and warm, so we're going to go ahead and toss in our olive oil. And then that, because the pan itself is nice and hot, is already pretty good and hot. So when we add these in, they're going to start sizzling immediately. And then we can also get our carrots thrown in right now. It's up to you if you want to peel the carrots. I think they look a little bit nicer peeled. But the benefit of not peeling them is there's a bunch of bacteria that grows like in the soil as like a symbiotic relationship with the root of the veggie. And those bacteria have some actually absorbable, digestible B12. So if you're like, you really want it to be extra good for you, I would just give the carrots a little scrub rather than peeling them. But they will look a little prettier. And, if you're sharing vegan food on Passover with your family who's otherwise like maybe a little closed-minded about vegan food, you want it to just look as absolutely nice as possible. So we're just going to go ahead and saute these up just for a few minutes to kind of soften them. And then we're going to bloom the spices in a little bit of the oil as well, which will just make them a little bit more flavorful in the broth. Now, you can get carried away and throw like other cool stuff into this broth. Like a lot of people would probably go for celery. I don't in this because my wife actually hates celery, which is probably the biggest conflict in our relationship because I really like celery. But anyway, I don't put celery in mine. You could if you felt like it. It's your soup. So you do what you want. Now, the other thing you could put into a matzo ball soup if you're not making it during Passover and it doesn't necessarily need to be fully kosher for Passover is a little bit of nutritional yeast would be really, really nice in the broth itself. Nutritional yeast is, however, not kosher for Passover. I don't really know why exactly. Maybe somebody else can weigh in on that, but don't put it in if you're making this for Passover. So these are reasonably soft enough. You can kind of see they're getting just lightly golden in there. So we're going to go ahead and add in our spices. And I like to, you see, like I kind of cleared off some space for the spices to initially have a little bit of direct contact with the pan. We don't want that to go too far before we start adding liquid. We don't want the spices to like burn at all. So I'm going to just go ahead and strain this stock right into here. And then this stuff, again, like if you got doggies at home, this is great stuff to throw into your dog food if you feel like it. If you put dried mushrooms and stuff like that into your stock, I wouldn't do that. But otherwise, like if you just followed this recipe, it's fine to give to your doggos. So while this cooks, I'm going to go ahead and move this onto a back burner here. And onto the front burner, I'm just going to bring a pot of water that I've got boiling here. And that's going to be for our matzo balls themselves. All right. Here we go. So I prepped some matzo balls in advance in a couple different states so you could see this whole thing start to finish. Because like I mentioned, matzo balls are a little bit time intensive, more on the waiting side of things than on the active labor side of things. So here we go. This here is for the matzo balls themselves. you may or may not know, but there is kosher for Passover matzah meal and regular matzah meal. I am like forever, my heart belongs to Strites because my dad used to bring me there to their ancient matzah factory in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Like every year, that was like our family pilgrimage before Passover to pick up matzah. And we would like get to eat a slice like fresh off of these ancient looking machines they had for like, you know, conveyor belt type of machines for baking the matzah and everything. So even though they're now like relocated out in New Jersey somewhere, I still will forever use their matzah meal. But you could totally use like the Manischewitz or Yehuda or whatever. But for me, I can't do that because my heart belongs to them. The other thing we're going to be using is this JustEgg stuff. You know, it's made from mung beans. It is kosher for Passover. And the other thing that's, to me, so surprisingly kosher for Passover is like club soda or tonic water or, you know, seltzer or bubble water. Any of them will work just fine in this but the JustEgg is not kosher for Passover? That's news to me if that's the case. But yeah, I mean, you could just make your own from some soaked pureed mung beans and just pureeing them with water. In any case, that's what I use. There's a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of salt, and again, plenty of dill. My grandma always had a ton of dill in her matzo balls, but sadly, the other thing she had a ton of in her matzo balls was chicken fat and eggs. And since I don't do any of that stuff, I've kind of had to rework it like this. So let me grab a bowl and we will just mix this all up. So here's our matzo meal. Here's our JustEgg. Our salt and garlic powder. A bit of chopped dill. Some olive oil. And our soda water. And we're just going to go ahead and mix that by hand. And it takes a while for the matzah meal to really hydrate. You know, think of it almost like super coarse breadcrumbs. You know, it's going to take a little while for the liquid to penetrate the actual matzah meal. So after you mix it, I like to give it a good rest in the refrigerator for like about an hour. And after that, it kind of looks like this. So you can see it firms up quite a lot. And we're going to go ahead and just make balls out of this. You can see it's even like a little bit on the drier side of what you would normally make matzo balls out of, but this works really well. And let me just show you that the secret to forming these and not having them be dense is you really don't want to like squeeze the living daylights out of them. You just want to get them to come together as a ball. They can be a little bit rough and shaggy. That's okay. But really don't compress them, because if you compress them, you're guaranteed to have like pretty darn dense matzo balls, like where even after steaming for a good while, the centers will be kind of like chewier and tougher than you'd like them to be. So it's up to you, like exactly the size. I would say like 4 teaspoons-ish size is kind of normal for a matzo ball. All right. And again, like you can see, I'm not going like losing my mind making these all perfectly spherical, because I'd rather not make them super dense, you know, at the expense of having them be like perfect little golf balls or whatever. All right. Cool. So once you've got your balls made, you've got some water boiling. You're definitely going to want to salt the water, because think of matzo balls. They're like technically like a form of a dumpling, like almost like making a pasta, right? So you do want to cook them in some salted water. And here's what I like to do. You can see this is at like a pretty vigorously rolling boil. I like to toss these in and then just immediately drop the temperature down all the way to like a simmer. And then I like to throw a lid on my pot as well. And I'll let this cook this way for about an hour. Um, and they will continue cooking in the hot water after that. You're going to cook them like actually over heat for an hour. And then once they're done, and you'll see they get like nice and fluffy and kind of bloated and cloudy looking, you'll kill the heat underneath the pot and just let them steam in the pot for at least half an hour. You can even let them go longer. Like if you're prepping matzo ball soup in the morning for a Seder in the evening, you could get them all steamed and cooked, and you could just leave them in the pot in the water until you're ready to serve it. And then you just kind of warm the contents of the pot up, strain them out into your soup, and they're ready to go. You can kind of let them hang out in there. They're not gonna go wacky. And also, if you make them in advance and you're like saving them to serve, say you make them next Thursday to serve for Passover on Saturday, you can refrigerate them like in a container with some kind of liquid, either with broth or with water, rather than leaving them out to dry. When they're all done, they're going to look a little something like this. Let me grab a little pencil. Oops. Here we go. Yum. Yeah, you can see they're pretty darn nice and fluffy. Pretty perfs. And they're not real dense. They've got like a little jiggle to them. They're nice. All right. So while our broth continues to cook and the carrots get nice and tender, I think Emma's got some questions for me about stuff, and we can chat all about all the things.
That's great. Well, first, I just have a question from the chat regarding the matzo
Yeah.
balls.
Mhm.
Does it matter if there are cracks in them, they don't fall apart?
No, they really won't fall apart unless those are like deep, like they look like they're gonna totally fall apart. But like even these ones I just formed, you could see they were like kind of loose looking. They weren't really like squeezed super tight, and that's on purpose. They will be bound just by, there's gluten obviously in the matzah meal, and then all the liquids also help bind it, so they shouldn't fall apart on you whatsoever.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, the first question I had planned to ask was just for you to tell us about your vegan journey.
Yeah. So I grew up totally not vegan. And it was when I was like in high school, I fell in love with this girl who I'm still together with now. We have like an adult aged kid together. She's 24, and it was on her, like the day she was born, that I went vegan. My wife was vegan, and she was like really the first person I knew closely who was vegan. And I'd never really thought about it, but I really considered her choice to be, like really based on compassion. And um, I really admired it. But for me, I was like not ready to make some kind of decision that would in any way like limit my freedom. That's how I was thinking about it at the time. And I started learning how to cook, like just because this girl who I really liked was vegan, but all she ate was like French fries and canned soup. And I was like, man, I got to learn how to cook so I can make this girl some yummier food. Sometimes this tech stuff goes awry. In any case, working in restaurants, like people would come into this not vegan restaurant I was working at because I was just trying to like learn better cooking skills. And they would try to like modify some menu item to make it vegetarian or vegan. And I kept on finding myself like sort of standing up for these people to the other line cooks who would kind of like roll their eyes about it. And finally, one of them was like, Adam, like, if you believe in this so much, like, why aren't you vegan? And at that time, I was like, you're right. Like, I don't really have any more excuses. Like, I know this food can be yummy, and I do like agree with it ethically. And so I went vegetarian then. I still told myself I was like eating like humanely raised eggs or whatever, this kind of narrative people have. Keep in mind, I was like 17 or 18 years old. So I was really dumb then. I'm not that dumb now, as you can plainly see. I'm significantly less dumb. Anyway, so then the day our daughter was born, like about a year later, we had home births with both of our kids. And during the time my wife was in labor, I was thinking a lot about, first of all, how much I wanted to raise our kid vegan. Um, but also, something just really like hit me thinking about how important I knew nursing would be for our daughter, both, physically and emotionally and spiritually. And I felt like, man, like how hypocritical is it for me to recognize that the value of that for my own child, but stand in the way of it for somebody else's. And so that day that the day that my daughter was born was the day that I also went vegan. And from there, like it became like my life. And it's become kind of like my goal to help more and more people, to stop causing avoidable violence to animals. So yeah, that's my story.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, does your Judaism inform your vegan values in any way?
So it's a really funny question you're asking me because for full disclosure for the rest of you guys, Emma sent me these questions in advance, and I was almost like, that question I just don't want to talk about. But I was like, you know what, let me like talk about it because people should know what I'm about. So like, though I was raised Jewish and I was like bar mitzvahed and everything, and though my daughters both like on their own kind of found their way to Judaism, um, I'm not like a practicing Jewish person at all. My wife and I are like practicing Hare Krishnas, and it's like theologically very, very different from Judaism. Like even on like an existential level about like the soul's relationship with God and stuff like that. It's pretty super different. And so no, and it remains to me to be like one of these things where like I would think and assume and hope that like the morality presented in Judaism would make the mainstream Jewish culture gravitate towards veganism. And I'm always surprised that there, I mean, look, it's in any spiritual culture, there's always folks who find ways to like twist scriptural realizations and commandments to their own will or whatever. So I don't think Judaism is alone in that. We have almost every world religion has like people perpetrating something kind of shady that they've like said is somehow written about in the book or whatever. So no, it's not informed. My Judaism hasn't really informed my veganism, but what's really cool is my younger daughter, really found her way back to Judaism during the pandemic because, we homeschooled both of our kids too. And part of that was about giving them the opportunity to figure out like what way of understanding reality really resonated with them. Like I always felt in school that that theoretical science is really presented as some like provable, definite way of understanding our existence. Um, and like largely, and I think more and more this is the case, like in school, spirituality is kind of like given the side eye. Like it's like no, it's not as valid a way of understanding reality. And so I raised both of our kids like giving them a lot of exposure to different, not like different ways of understanding the world we live in, including, their connection to Judaism. And during the pandemic, we caught, like, our younger daughter was like trying to teach herself Hebrew. And I was like, oh, that's like really cool. Do you want us to get you like some guidance with that? You want us to like, help you like find a Hebrew school you want to work with, or a Sunday school you want to go to? And so she like took it upon herself to prepare for a bat mitzvah, like with our support, but it was like her real decision to do it, which was super cool because like up until her bat mitzvah, I had never been to one that really felt like it was the kid's own personal like desire to do it. Like it always felt like even mine, like I think I did it because my parents expected it of me or whatever. And this was very genuine and really like sweet to behold. Like she learned this super long Torah portion and like fully learned Hebrew, like because that was what she wanted to do. And so it was super rad. Anyhow, I hope that answers your questions. I know it's like the super long answer. Sorry.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, different things bring people to veganism, and it's interesting to see if there's a connection. What have you seen be most effective in moving people towards veganism?
Well, my approach is to just like make absurdly yummy food that just happens to not have any animal products in it. And then like, my feeling is that people are like genuinely deep down good inside. Like I don't really buy that narrative that like human nature is to be like selfish or whatever, is this kind of narrative that's peddled. Like I think genuinely people are loving creatures and want to be kind to each other and want to do good. And there's a lot of like societal programming that's caused people to have all these like excuses of why they eat animals and animal products. And largely just like taking away those last excuses, which is that they don't think it's going to be yummy, it might be inconvenient, maybe it's not going to be as good for you or whatever. Once you like blow those up, like if the food is like way yummier than their not vegan food, it's like kind of hard for them to justify why they're going to kill somebody over like a meal that's not as yummy. So that's kind of like where I've put a lot of my energy is first of all in like cooking in a way that is very like not just for vegans to enjoy, but like food that's really designed to be appealing to people who don't give a crap about veganism yet. That was always like my desired audience with my food trucks and restaurant and stuff like that, and with my cooking blog now. And to me, that feels like a much more like fun way to move our culture towards nonviolence than anything like, yelling at people or demonstrations. Like, I mean, and I have nothing against that stuff. It just doesn't feel as like fun and positive and effective to me, like, because it like reinforces the stereotype to some degree that vegans are like pushy and whatever. Like I think if the food is banging, people like make those connections on their own, and that's what makes a more lasting effect on culture is when people make those decisions like from their own realization rather than being told what to do or being forced what to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think all different approaches are important, and yours is a really great one.
Well,
Um, can you tell us a little bit about the cinnamon snail and like your current work?
totally. So yeah, so I'd been working at vegan restaurants, and the day we closed on this house, we were buying it from the previous owner of this restaurant I was working at, who had sold the restaurant, and I was still working there, but they were moving to the West Coast. And the week that I was supposed to like close on this house and move in, the new owner of that restaurant like had ran the restaurant into the ground in like a month or something. And it was closing. And like many people working in restaurants, I had been working there like off the books for 5 or 6 years. And it was like, gosh, I got to figure out what I'm going to do next. I had this like young family, and so I started doing a lot of private chefing, and my wife and I had a stand at our local farmers market, the Red Bank Farmers Market. And from that, we like saved up just enough money to buy the absolutely most beat up food truck on all of Craigslist, which we fixed up. And um, like I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it. It was kind of like just before food trucks got popular. It was back in 2010 when we launched it. And it went through all kinds of evolutions, the style of food I was serving from it, et cetera. But it became like hyper crazy popular beyond my wildest dreams. Um, and, from there, like I wrote a cookbook. I opened up a couple restaurant locations. And then when the pandemic hit, like it was kind of very graceful, perfect timing for me because it had grown into this like massive operation where I found myself more and more being like the commander of an army rather than getting to do a lot of cooking. We had like 65 full-time employees. It was this like 24/7 operation. I trained people to come in and make all of our donuts and baked goods overnight. And it was this really complex thing. And it was such a nice opportunity to kind of like hit the reset button and feel like, where should I go from here that's more aligned with where I'm at now as a person and what I want to be doing and don't want to be doing. And so I kind of dug into like a lot of the culinary consulting work that I've always done, making recipes for other people's restaurants and food businesses. But I also started teaching cooking online because I taught at some culinary schools before the pandemic. And to me it was cool, but it always felt like not very approachable. Like those classes are pretty expensive. They tend to be like a couple $100 a class, and you can only have maybe 10 or 12 people in those classes. And so I started teaching cooking online, and it really evolved into this whole like vegan, what I call vegan university. Linda, you're a member over there. I think Adrian's a member too. There's a couple people in this class today that are members, and it's pretty cool. Like we have this huge library of like all the classes I've ever taught, and then every month I teach new classes on all different topics of vegan cuisine. Sometimes it's very fundamental stuff like how to make seitan or work, get different textures out of tofu, and sometimes it's really specific. Like the Passover class I'm teaching next week, or like, classes I've done on everything from Turkish food to Malaysian food or vegan dim sum or like veganized Chinese takeout cuisine. And I really love it. Like, so on top of those classes I teach, I also have this food blog, which I now publish about 5 recipes to a week, which is a huge undertaking. It's not just like I write a recipe and put it up there. Like I have step-by-step photos of like every step of the process of making the dish, and lots of information on like what to substitute if you can't get this one kind of chili or whatever. And I love it because it's super creative. And the other thing that I get to do that's really creative now is that in doing all this stuff online, I was also like kind of missing actually cooking for people in real life. So a couple years ago, I started this new weird thing. If you go to my website, there's like a whole pop-up tab that tells you the whole story behind it, but it's this whole new thing called Galactic Mega Stallion. And it's like a pop-up food business that every year has a different theme, like a different style. And then within that year's theme, every single week is like a 100% new menu, like riffing on the style of that year's theme. And it's so all these different things like have me constantly getting to challenge myself and be creative with food, and have me doing a whole lot less of the stuff I wasn't loving about having a restaurant, doing like HR related things. So it's nice. That's all the stuff I'm doing related to the cinnamon snail now.
That's awesome. That's cool that your journey led you to this place that you're enjoying.
Yeah.
Someone asked why you call it the cinnamon snail.
It's not really like people have asked me this all so, like in every interview over the years, and like I used to make up really goofy fake answers for it, but like there's not really any. It's kind of cute. Like when my wife and I had that stand before we bought the food truck, one of the many things we made were like cinnamon rolls, and another name for those, believe it or not, is cinnamon snails. It's based on the I think Danish name for them, which is Snail, which is like translates because it's like you know, it looks like a snail. Anyway, that's the whole. It's mostly just really cute. That's it. Though not everybody thinks it's cute. Some people are like, "That's disgusting. You should be ashamed of yourself with that name," or whatever.
Um, what is your vegan pet peeve? For example, the one question that non-vegans ask that drives you up a wall, or when the only vegan option at a restaurant is buffalo cauliflower.
I'm not like a pet peeve guy. To be very honest, like very few things really like bother and upset me in the world. Even like the like unfortunate things that are going on in the world. Like I take that all as like our responsibility to change those things. Like even the crazy like geopolitical things that are going on in our world. I don't think it's like a really helpful mindset to just like let stuff get under my skin, especially like silly stuff like about food. Like as far as I'm concerned, any way people want to, you know, eat food that doesn't harm somebody else is great. If I'm being honest, like is it going to be more effective at making a bigger impact in the world if the food is incredible? For sure. But, like there's a lot of people running food businesses who aren't necessarily great cooks. Like they're just good at business or whatever, and they're doing the best they can. So, yeah, nothing really like grinds my gears about vegan food.
Okay, good to know. What exciting stuff do you have coming up?
All right. Well, the new season of Galactic Mega Stallion will be starting up probably in June. I'm supposed to take my younger daughter. She works at these pop-ups with me. It's intentionally very small so that like the only employees I have are my family, and I love that because we get to like spend our Sundays together doing that, and we both look forward to it. And last year she was like, Dad, I want to save up the tip money we get at the pop-ups for you and me to like go on a trip together somewhere. So we saved up a few $1,000s from that, and she really wants me to take her to Greece. So when she's done with school, because now she's in high school, she wanted to go to high school. So once she's out of school, I need to take her to Greece for like a week or two. So probably sometime in June we'll be starting that back up. Otherwise, it's just a nonstop hit parade of cooking classes every month, and it's delightful. That's all that's coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Last question I have for you is how can
Yeah.
people find you online?
Oh, it's very easy. You can come to my website, cinnamonsnail.com. And that's where I live. Yeah, that's the main thing. I do have social media. I don't really encourage people to be on there if you can help it. I don't think it's good for anybody. So just come to my website and cook some food. I think you'll like it. All
Great.
right, so
I put the link in the chat.
you want me to bowl up some of this matzo ball soup so y'all can see it all finished? All right,
That'd be
give
great.
me 1 second to grab a bowl. Second here. All right. So, last thing we got to do to finish up our soup is throw in plenty of herbs, parsley, and dill. The other thing we've not done yet is add some salt. Give that a good stir. And you can see like the carrots are nice and tender now. And I like to serve like 3 matzo balls to a portion of soup. So we'll just toss those in there. and top it with some of this yummy broth. And I always like to hit it with like a little bit of a fresh herb on top. I think that's just extra nice. Yeah, that's what it's looking like. It's pretty darn yummy. I hope you make some of this soup and enjoy it. In fact, my older daughter, who I didn't really talk much about during this class, she is like a matzo ball soup all year round fiend, and she works as a vet tech in a local, vet hospital. And she will bring a thermos of matzo ball soup with her like almost every day to work as her lunch. Like, I mean, that's an exaggeration. If I make it, she'll eat it like every day until it's gone. So the soup we made in today's class, I'm going to bring down to her apartment after this class, and she's going to dine upon it until she can't dine no more. Yeah, that's what I got for you.
Well, thank you so much. This was great to watch. I hope everyone will make it and let us know if you liked it. And thank you again, Chef Adam. It's been such a great time to interview you and learn from you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Emma, and I'm wishing you all a very peaceful Passover and spring to come.
Thank you so much. Happy Passover to you as well and to everyone here. Really quick before we
Mhm.
go, just wanted to let you know about a few things coming up for Shemayim. We are having another program tomorrow. It's going to be a book talk about Jewish ethics and animals with Rabbi Jeffrey Clausen and Rabbi Shmuley Yanklowitz. That will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So you're welcome to join us for that, and I'll email that with after this program was over with all the other links that you might need, including the recipe from today. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, and everyone have a wonderful Passover.